All right, welcome to the April 5th APRC special business meeting. It is exactly 6 p.m. and the meeting is now called to order. I understand that no one has signed up to speak for public forum. Is that right, Sean? And we'll just get right into it. I think I'll hand it over to Rachel for the staff report.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Aldridge. And so tonight we're talking about the Kaye Guanajuato. I do have a short slideshow for you. I'm happy to take questions as we go along. You might just have to interrupt me because sometimes I get into a zone and I don't see people's hands going up. So, but basically what we need to do, what the commission needs to do tonight is a few things. We need to look at the Kaye Guanajuato boundary map. The Lithia Artisans Market also in past years has had use of the front of the park. So that's another item we'll need to discuss. The biggest thing we're looking at tonight is actually a potential for fee increase for the restaurant, not only the restaurants, but also the artisans. We need to look at the season of operation. So we have two option for an 8-month season and then an extension for 9.5 months season, as well as a off-season agreement for the following 3 months of the year. And then also approve the 8 restaurants and 1 Lithia Artisans Market agreement for staff to move forward on that. So those are the kind of the overview of the things that we want to accomplish tonight. So I will go ahead and get started, and let me share my screen here. There we go. Here's my first slide. So, so not many people know this, that the Parks and Recreation does oversee the lease agreements, commercial space applications for the Kaye Guanajuato, and that includes restaurants that are along the Kaye, as well as the Lithia Artisans Market. For this upcoming year, we have 8 restaurants and the Lithia Artisans Market who will be participating in the commercial space agreements. This is just a listing of the actual restaurants that have expressed interest and submitted their applications. And the numbers and letters on the other side of those correspond to the boundary map. So that just kind of tells staff and tells the commission where they're kind of located within the boundary map. So if we're looking at this boundary map here, this is a draft, and the purple indicates any spaces that are artisan spaces which it would be on the weekends, so Saturdays and Sundays. The red indicates restaurant spaces. So anything that is used anywhere between 5 and 7 days per week for restaurants. The blue has been designated as a shared space. That means that we know for certain that the artisans are using it every weekend. And if restaurants want to use it, they can, but it's only for the 5 days. And then the black indicates the trees that are along the Kaye. So that is the boundary map itself. Is there any questions so far? I want to stop and pause if, okay. This next slide, sorry, it's a little bit dark, but this is the drawing that the artisans have done that indicates where they what park areas they're in along the Kaye. So if you see up towards the top of the screen here, there's Scout, and here's the Kaye here, and then the front of Lithia Park. So the artisans use the lawn area that is right along the parking. So the mostly they actually stay on the cement in that area and sometimes veer off into the grass there. But they use that area as well as the front lawn of Lithia Park. And they like to have those areas because it is kind of a line of sight for them, for people kind of entering into downtown. They're like, oh, what's going on in front of the park? And they have pretty much set up to use the front of the park. They've also have some spots in front of ComDev and in the parking lot area there by the Kaye restrooms. So they do have a really good line of sight to welcome people onto the Kaye on the weekends. So that's their little map that they submitted. So we are looking at, sorry, give me 1 second here. So over the years, the Kaye is has been used more regularly by both restaurants and the artisans. In 2010, the commission approved. That was the first time the commission had approved a extended season. So it was April 1st through November 15th. And once the Kaye Guanajuato was redone in 2014, obviously more restaurants were interested in using it for longer term. And so that after 2014 was when the commission started approving historically longer season. So mid-March through mid-November. If we're looking at the fee, in looking at the potential fee increases tonight, sorry, my cat. When we put together the information on fees, we looked at some of the things, some of the factors, and some of those things were the last time that the fees were raised on the Kaye was in 2017. The most current cost recovery numbers that we have right now are from 2018, and they show that we're only at a 62% cost recovery. The CPI, the Consumer Price Index, that for the West region has been at it's over 20% since it's a cumulative of over 20% since 2018. And the APRC, our staff and material costs have gone up each year. They have increased each year since 2018 and even since before that. So our my assessment and recommendations for you, the first one is obviously to look at increasing fees over a 3-year period for the restaurants. We're looking at raising the restaurants each year in 2023, 2024, and 2025, 9% per year. And we're looking at, I'm also recommending a 7% increase for the artisans for the first year, and then have them stabilize keep that the same in 2024 and 2025. The restaurants the artisans are currently paying 54% more than restaurants for the amount of time that they actually use the space. And by increasing the percentage for the artisans, that over time that will diminish. So the percentage will diminish. So here is the spreadsheet for the Kaye that shows you currently the fees, $5.50 for artisans, the $8 for the 7-day rental, and the $5 for the 5-day rental. The next column is the 100% cost recovery fee. So that basically tells us that what we need to get to in order to be recovering at 100% of our costs. And then the next 3 columns are what the fees would be in 2023, 24, and 25 for the artisans and the restaurants. And then below is shows you kind of the average of what a restaurant and the artisans would pay based on the amount of square footage, the fee. Does that make sense? Okay. And so basically, now I'm in the kind of the assessment and recommendation. So if we look at the boundary map, we're looking at, staff is recommending approval of the boundary map tonight. And the artisans market use of the front of the park, we're looking at approval of use of the front of the park with no use of the lawn or grass areas after November 1st, or if a half an inch of rain fall within like a 3-day period. Extending the season of operation. We've got an eight-month season that goes from March 13th through November 12th, and then a 9.5-month season that would go through the end of the year. And this gives restaurants a choice if they want to extend the months of the season. And if the commission does decide to choose to provide the option of 9.5 months, the per month fees would be prorated for the 9.5 months. And then allowing for the season off-season agreements. So that would be from January 1st of next year through March 10th. And for any restaurants who are interested, we aren't considering any, I didn't propose any fee increases for that, because we only have a very small handful of restaurants that are actually interested in the off-season agreement, like maybe 2 or 3. And that's, let's see, that's what I have. And I'm happy to answer questions. We do, in order to be able to move forward tonight, we will need motions on each of those items, and in order to move forward with the contracts.
Okay, I understand that there's no one on the line here for public input, so I'm going to open the floor up for discussion and questions. Yeah, Commissioner Adams.
Thanks for the presentation, Rachel. I just had 2 questions. One, and my apologies if I couldn't pull it out of the package. The couple of restaurants that have opted to use this for off season, what is the current rate there for the off season?
So the off season right now, they're just paying the regular rate of the $8 and the $5
Okay.
per square foot. So that's what they paid for now in the off season. So what they would pay if y'all move forward with the fee increase would just be the continuation of a prorated fee based on the new rate.
Okay, that makes sense to me. Second, I was just curious, because I know you've spent a lot of time interacting with the artisans and the restaurateurs in the area, and wondering about what kind of feedback you have gotten from them on these rate increases.
Sure. I sent the packet out last week to all of anybody who is potentially using the Kaye this spring, and I only actually received one comment back, and it was just a couple questions about the expenses associated with the cost recovery. So what the expenses include for use of the Kaye. So you know, when we're looking at cost recovery, we're looking at staff time, we're looking at, you know, water use, utilities, weekly maintenance of the Kaye, all of those things go into the costs. So that was the only question I received. And it was sent to everybody like last Wednesday. So.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner Lewis. Oh, you're muted.
I know the city allows use of the sidewalks and some of that areas too. Is it a lease agreement that is similar to ours in any way?
I don't think it's similar. And I'm not sure actually of their fees at this point. I know that they were trying to get their fees in line with what we were charging, but I'm not actually sure if that happened or not. Our process, I think, is a little more extensive than the city process, because of the amount of space that we're leasing, as opposed to I think there's only like 2 restaurants that have areas that they could actually even use, which I think would be Scout and Mix. Yeah.
Okay, any other commissioners? Commissioner Lewis?
Yeah. And I know we waived a lot of that during the pandemic. We pretty much bent over backwards to help them out during their time of need. And so I think that was something that we need to remind people of. And for me, the most important of the part of the presentation, which was excellent, was the 4 bullet points about when we increased it last, how much inflation has affected just about everything we're talking about. And so for me, that was compelling in the sense that, and Rick Lant is not here, so somebody should speak up for him too, because he was always pushing for trying to get closer to some nebulous amount that we haven't even really figured out yet. But we are kind of undervaluing something that's hugely important. And we did put in hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it has transformed the alley to an amazing place. And so I would be for this presentation, in favor of it.
All right, Commissioner Bachman.
Yes, I just have a comment that it's nice that we can lay out 3 years of fees for planning purposes for the restaurants and the artisans. They can work that into their business plans, and they don't have to be second guessing whether we're going to do something different. So it's nice to have a longer term perspective on this. And 3 years is probably enough. I was thinking maybe 5, but 3 years is enough. So that they know exactly what they're going to be charged, and it's not a guessing game. So I think that's a nice positive change in what we were doing. Before, it was kind of like they didn't know what we were going to do, whether we stay the same or whether we. Yeah. So this is a nice stabilization of the program.
And if I can just say one more thing, just to add to that, is that once we get through this process tonight, the fees will go into a package to council, because council will approve all of the fees for the city. So it will go to council. I do expect that we're going to be bringing back some other fees to the Parks Commission, maybe even in May. So we might package them all together and take them all with, the other city departments who are going to be proposing fee increases as well. So more to come on that, but I just wanted to make sure that you understand the process for the fees.
Commissioner Adams.
Just wanted to piggyback a little bit on what Commissioner Lewis and Commissioner Bachman shared. When I was fooling around with the numbers on this as the math nerd that I am, I'm looking at the amount of inflation since the last time fees were raised, and looking at the gap between where we are and full cost recovery. My initial reaction was, well, this is very modest. Right. And even had a reaction of like, maybe this is too modest. And then what I remembered is, because of the meals tax, and particularly if we're successful in formally dedicating the meals tax to parks, this is really a wonderful quid pro quo relationship. Right, which is that we give a nice space, and here I'm speaking specifically about the restaurants. We give a nice space to the restaurants. And in return, their patrons help to support the parks. And actually, in this case, the park that they are dining in, which is Wanawata Way. And so I think you've done this really well, Rachel, and it's really thoughtful. And I am supportive of where we landed. And I think I actually spoke to Commissioner Lant on Monday, and I know that he is supportive of this. And he kind of actually started from a place of what's the real retail value of these spaces. And of course, when we think about that, we are miles below that. We are way below that. But I think put in the perspective of we're helping the restaurants are helping us, or helping our parks and the people that enjoy our parks. I think this is just really well done. So thank you for that.
Thanks. I think we are, as we're moving towards, we have a project team that includes myself and Sean Sullivan and Tara Keywell and Eileen Glatt, and we are looking at, cost recovery across the department. And these are, I think before when we've created fees, we haven't tied in all of our costs, and what we're going to be bringing to you gets us, starts to get us there, where we're looking at all of our costs and really understanding what the full cost recovery is of all of our programs and services. So we're getting there. It's I think we're ahead of, I would say that we're probably ahead of a lot of other departments in the city as far as like looking at our costs and revenues.
Okay, I just want to echo the great comments by all the commissioners, and just a couple of quick additions. I want to say I really appreciate the stepwise increase over 3 years, both for the predictability that Commissioner Bachmann mentioned, but also I just think it's a nice effort to, again, along the lines of this modest increase, is for both, particularly for the restaurateurs, to have this stepwise moderate increase, so it's not like a shock to the system. And the other thing is that I very much appreciate the desire to reduce that discrepancy between what the artisans pay and the restaurateurs pay. As we know, a lot of our artisans are self-supporting and have sort of a different, and in some ways they really give back. They give back more to the community, and they provide color and music and art during the weekend. So I think it's eminently fair that we reduce that gap and make the payments more proportionate, and recognize that the artisans have been paying a bit more than restaurateurs when we look at the per day fee. So with that, are we ready for some motions? We have quite a few. Commissioner Bachmann.
I just have a housekeeping parliamentary question. I noticed in the packet that we had an option at the end of the possible motions to take them all in one motion. Is that possible? Do we actually have to do each separate motion? This may not. Go ahead.
I read it as, are you talking about I move to approve the 9 agreements?
Is that separate from approving all of these? Okay.
So that confused me as well, but I think they're talking about the 8 restaurants and 1 restaurateur and 1 artisan group who are all the like specific agreements with the vendors.
Okay. It's certainly safer to do them all individually. I mean, it's very clear that way.
I think, Commissioner Bachmann, if my reading of parliamentary rules is right, and I'm certainly no expert here, I think we could theoretically consider all of them together for the sake of efficiency, and that if any commissioner has concern with any one of them, they would vote no on the group, and then we could consider each individual motion individually to highlight the one that the dissenting commissioner or commissioners had voted know on. Does that seem right to others in this group that have more experience than I do?
I would maybe call on Sean or.
I think that they could do as presented in the memo, staff report. Michael's shaking his head, yes.
Yeah,
So-
Commissioner Adams, I think you are right. All of the motions all the motions are listed out in the staff report. They're all individual. There's no ambiguity to it. You know what you're talking about if you say we want to approve all of them. And then I also agree and think it would be a good practice if anybody does want to pull any of them out, just vote no, and then you can go one by one.
Okay, then I will be so bold as to make a motion. I move that we approve the 6 individual motions as outlined in the staff report pertaining to the fee structure for the next 3 years for Wanawata Way.
I'll second that.
Okay, Commissioner Adams, Commissioner Lewis, any comments?
None additional. Thank you.
No.
Anyone else?
No,
Okay, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Adams,
Yes.
Commissioner Bachman,
yes,
Commissioner Lewis,
Yes.
Commissioner Eldridge,
Yes,
motion passes.
all right. Well done. That was very efficient. Next item.
We
on the agenda-
appreciate the extra time to make sure everything was correct and appreciate the time. So thanks.
I think it was definitely worth doing, and we all really appreciate it. Items from commissioners or staff? Commissioner Lewis.
Hey, last month I did a little historic thing on the budget and the goals that Director Black has basically created for us in his term. And I guess the next thing I have to talk about is this item right here. When I first started, the director was Ken Mickelson, and the city's whole recreation program was the YMCA. And Don Robertson decided we need a recreation program as well. And Rachel Dials was hired, and this is the direct result of that. 20 years later, we have an amazing system, and there's so much to do in town, and it's all in this one handout. And I just want to say that's what happens when you have a vision and then you stick with it and you move towards the goal. And it's just amazing what has been created in 20 years. So thanks everybody in the staff for doing that, and enjoy all the good things that are happening in town.
Thank you. Anyone else, commissioners or staff? All right, well, I hope to see you all at First Friday this week. And with that short meeting is adjourned.
Hey,
Good
Passover.
Thank you. Bye.
thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.